Awesome. Awesome. What's up, everybody? How you all doing today? Welcome back to another live stream here on Celtics Digest. It's your boys, Bruce and Patrick, and we are here for you guys to break down everything on this Boston Celtics team. Patrick and I have been looking at some draft prospects, some guys that the Celtics have potentially worked out, and also going to be talking about some trade stuff that has been going down over these last couple of days revolving around this team. And Patrick, I'm very excited to have you back here, have these great discussions on our weekly live stream. How you doing, my guy? It's been a long time, or a little while, since we've been able to discuss some Celtics basketball.
Yeah, man, it's been a little bit of time, but I mean, like I like to say, I love the draft, man. I love how much we get to talk about it. It's my favorite time of year, and it's when everyone can learn a little bit something about the draft too. You never know what's actually going to happen, and I think that the Celtics have some great options. Hopefully, they move up and make their options a little bit better. But hey, let's get into some of this. We got some names in mind that hopefully you guys chat some names for us as well. If there's anyone that interests you guys, I'd love to hear it. So make sure you get those comments going and let us know what you guys are thinking too.
Yeah, definitely let us know down below in the comment section who you guys are looking at for key draft pieces for this Celtics team. Patrick and I are going to be doing our little bit of a series here on the channel where we're going to be looking at some draft guys for you guys. I know he's doing one later this evening / afternoon on a player, so if you want to check that out, definitely get into it. But I released two yesterday. Released one on Danny Wolf, and I released one on Ryan Kalkbrenner. And Patrick, I think if we can kind of start off, we could talk about those guys really quickly, as we did mention them in a video, but I really talked about them, but I didn't really get to hear your released point of view. Obviously, Danny Wolf probably a little bit more variant on the draft board, right? He could be around 14, 30 on some draft boards. Kalkbrenner, a little bit more in the rounding of the end of the first round, maybe early second round picks like 25 to around 32 I've been seeing on some mock drafts. So obviously both play the same position at the center but bring different type of qualities as their types of bigs. What do you really like with Danny Wolf if we start with him first?
You know, it's funny. I was kind of scrolling on Twitter today about Danny Wolf. Someone said that he passes the ball like Rondo. So that's an interesting take. But I think that he's a very smart basketball player. I mean, he came from the Ivy League first before he went to Michigan. So if that's a tell of how smart he is, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. But I think that the way that he's worked at Michigan, kind of running the two big pick and roll and how well that worked, that kind of is a surprise. Well, not really a surprise, but just a good sign if the Celtics kind of keep a guy like Porziņģis. I think that's something to look at, that you could kind of run that two big lineup and have someone that could run the point guard, has the ball skills, can shoot the ball pretty well. I think that he's a very interesting prospect, and like most guys are in that mid-first round, they're all over the place. So there's really no kind of telltale where Danny Wolf is going to land. We've seen some about him being in Minnesota, but I think he would fit really well with Boston's offense, especially the way that they play. And then a guy like Kalkbrenner, he's killed the Big East for years. It would definitely take a little bit for me to kind of love him because I hated him for so long. But I think that he could stretch the floor pretty well, and I think he'll constantly get better at shooting the three ball. But with a guy like Joe Mazzulla, I think he would kind of force him to be a little bit more of a down-low threat and stray away from the three ball like we saw with Kornet. But I think he's also an interesting option. We talked about this last time, Bruce. A lot of people didn't like Zach Edey. I didn't really like him so much going into the draft just because of his size, but I think he had a pretty successful rookie season, and I kind of get the same vibes with Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, I know me and you both have watched the Big East. As you're a Nova fan, I obviously went to Seton Hall a lot, and Kalkbrenner was one of those guys that would just attack in the paint against our team and be a real disruptor. But I truly agree that I think he would be a perfect kind of fit, kind of playing that Luke Kornet role for this Celtics team. Joe Mazzulla kind of abandoning that three-pointer. The one problem with him is a little bit slower as a big, which have some issues with some people. But personally, I think he'll translate well, like you mentioned, the comparison a little bit to Zach Edey, someone that I personally thought was not going to translate well to the NBA. Actually looked really impressive in his rookie season. So I think a guy like Kalkbrenner could kind of make a sort of, maybe not as big of an impact, but a sort of impact for the Celtics bench if they necessarily need him. Maybe even surpassing guys like Neemias Queta or Xavier Tillman in that depth chart here for the Celtics in training camp. But also having that connection with Baylor Scheierman, I think, is just a key point, obviously, with both of them going to Creighton. Obviously, if Jrue Holiday gets traded, which we'll get into a little bit later in some discussions, Peyton Pritchard might get a bump. Scheierman gets a bump in that rotation, can run that little pick and roll, pick and pop. I'm really liking that type of option there. But Danny Wolf as well, like you mentioned, man, he would be amazing for the Boston Celtics. You mentioned that passing like Rondo, he definitely has it. And I think one of the key things that not a lot of people realize is he played next to another 7-footer at Michigan this season and was so solid in that role. And I think that really stands for the kind of direction that we're going with the NBA. Obviously, these kind of double big lineups and the size being a big impact, but with the Celtics kind of not really having that impact or having some uncertainty with some of those guys, I think a guy like Danny Wolf could be a perfect piece to either play that 5, play that 4, kind of play some interchangeable roles for this team too.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Wolf is definitely a very exciting name. I do like when you kind of bring some guys in from the same college and put them on the same team, like Villanova, and right away connection. I mean, maybe in the undrafted state, if you think a little bit further, with a little Ryan Nembhard, who did go to Creighton, finished up at Gonzaga. Maybe another guy to look at if the Celtics are looking for some depth. I think he's a little bit of an underrated guard as well. He's a very smart point guard. Kind of plays like his brother, obviously. But I think that could be a cool little connection if we're looking at connections. But Danny Wolf would be impressive, especially without Jayson Tatum in the lineup this year. I mean, we don't know when he's going to come back, but I think he could fill in some good minutes. He's an older guy, and I think that's the direction that the Celtics are kind of looking at. That's kind of what I was getting at, the vibes with the team, mostly just because they don't really want to rebuild. They're trying to retool and figure out what they got and kind of get some plug-in guys that'll be on some cheaper contracts that are able to pick up some slack. And I think that these are two great options. Older guys, veteran guys, kind of been through it all. I think they're perfect. I really do.
Yeah, and if you look at the Celtics, like, latest draft history, right? You look at guys like Baylor Scheierman drafted last year. He was a guy that had gone to college for multiple seasons. Look at a guy in the year of the draft previous, Jordan Walsh. He was obviously a rookie. Two different variants of the spectrum, but if you look at a guy like Baylor Scheierman compared to Jordan Walsh and how they've been able to succeed in the Celtics rotation, it does seem like Baylor's kind of already passed him already because he already has that experience, right? Jordan Walsh, no slack on him. I want him to succeed, and I have not sold my Jordan Walsh stock yet at all. I still think he can be a tremendous defender for the Celtics team if they really do invest in him, and I feel like this season might be that prime season. But going away from that, having those guys that are, you know, a little bit older, like you mentioned, is key in the draft, specifically drafting late. And for a Celtics team that wants to stay afloat, doesn't want to go towards the bottom in a weakened Eastern Conference, still wants to be a competitive team without Jayson Tatum, and has some key free agents as well, really plugging in those holes with guys that can really step up and deliver right away is key. And Danny Wolf and Ryan Kalkbrenner both hit that. Danny Wolf, I believe, is 21. Ryan Kalkbrenner, I believe, is 23. So those are two key things for the Boston Celtics when really evaluating this draft class as well.
Yeah, you think about that first round kind of contract when it comes to a rookie, it's definitely about 3 to 4 years. So, I mean, if you get Kalkbrenner already at 23, you get him on that rookie contract all the way up until he's 24, 24, Christ, 26, 27. I mean, that's a steal, even if he's able to kind of get out there and give you some good minutes. I mean, I really do think he's a great defender, too, down low. I mean, Big East Defender of the Year. I mean, Luke Kornet's a great defender down low as well, but talk about kind of just picking up where you left off. You're kind of subbing in someone else just as big to do the same type of things. Kornet isn't the fastest guy either, let's be real. Maybe more of a lob threat, probably a higher vertical than Kalkbrenner, but he's still getting those lobs, and I think it's a great option because I do like having a lob threat down low. I think most of us do. Shout out Time Lord. One of them comes to a lob threat, but I think Kalkbrenner can actually fit in pretty well, but there's a couple other prospects too, Bruce, that we did talk about that can also fit that role, especially someone who would take in the role of the Kristaps Porziņģis, right, and Maxime Reynaud.
Yes,
right?
I was just about to bring him up. I was legitimately about to bring him up too. Yeah, he is very enticing, and he's someone that I know the How About Them Celtics boys did a video on it today, and I could not sleep last night, so I was up at 5:30 in the morning still watching their video with my messed up sleep schedule right when it dropped, and I got a little bit of a breakdown on Maxime Reynaud. He is going to be a fantastic. He looks incredible, right? You mentioned the shooting. He can do that, but his size at 7 foot, his length, he has those long arms. he is going to bully people. And yes, he might have went against some weaker competition at Stanford, right? He wasn't in the SEC, he wasn't in the Big East, he wasn't in these power conferences. But man, does he look fantastic. I don't know if he's going to be available for the Boston Celtics at that pick because, once again, he had a really good combine. He might be able to rise in that slot. He might be able to even go like early 20s. Maybe this is a pick that the Timberwolves also consider when looking at a guy like Danny Wolf as well. But like you mentioned, I think all three bigs that we've kind of mentioned, Kalkbrenner, Danny Wolf, and even a guy in Maxime Renault, all have similar qualities to the three bigs already on this roster. Kalkbrenner and Luke Kornet are very similar. Renault and obviously Porziņģis. And then you look at Danny Wolf, and I kind of see a little bit of Al Horford kind of in him. I know maybe not perfectly like a representation, but he can kind of play the 4 and the 5, a little bit of what Al can do, giving you that versatility. He can also stretch and hit the jump shot a little bit as well. He can be a solid rebounder. Obviously, it's not a perfect fit. I think he had more of a Brook Lopez kind of comparison on those draft ranks and stuff like that. But I could see him kind of molding into that too, and specifically with Xavier Tillman kind of being a question mark with the Celtics team as well, and Neemias Queta also being a little bit of a question mark. I think really identifying the center is a key point in the Celtics in the draft, more than really any other position at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to sit here and think about a former Celtic that really kind of brings Danny Wolf into like a comparison. There really isn't too many guys that come from behind really quick because of how good of a facilitator he is and how he is. So that's the problem I'm having here. I mean, I don't mind the Al Horford kind of comp. I'd say he's definitely a better ball handler than Al Horford. I don't think that's a question. Even when it comes to just ball security. But I mean, man, I'm just trying to really look back, and I feel like the Celtics really haven't had a player like that. I guess when it comes to the height, right, and length, maybe you just say Tatum as a facilitator, but that's literally all I'm getting at. Let's not do that comparison. When it comes to someone at like around that height with the same type of lengths, I think that's like kind of like what you're kind of getting at. But when it comes to a facilitating standpoint, I think it's around the same area, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that comparison wasn't the greatest. I was just kind of trying to, to be honest, it wasn't great. But but I was just trying to think of just like someone that can kind of Tweeny kind of play that position, kind of be a little bit of a representative for the Celtics as well. You know, I want to see this team develop and be really good. And I feel like hitting at that center position compared to the forward position, right? Like you have Jaylen Brown this season, you have potentially Sam Hauser, you have Jordan Walsh on the wing. You don't really need to address that as much, even though that would still be a position of need, maybe at pick 32. You got the guard, maybe looking to move off Jrue Holiday, but who knows? You might get a guard in free agency. You might get a guard in a trade back if you do trade Porziņģis, Holiday, Sam Hauser, whoever you involve in a deal. But you got Derrick White, Peyton Pritchard, even J.D. Davidson on that team contract as well. In my opinion, I think the center is just that key spot that the Celtics really need to be looking at as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think I just kind of want to like jump a little bit here. One thing that the Celtics that we keep talking about is that they never trade up.
Yep.
But is this the draft that they will finally trade up? Because you got a team in the Oklahoma City Thunder that are a couple picks ahead of them that definitely have the same exact idea. But I think our guy Bryson, I listened to his radio spot today.
Yes.
Talking about how the Thunder don't really have a roster spot for anybody right now, so they would have to kind of trade back. So that's kind of interesting. But I know they were interested in a guy that I'm going to talk about later in a video today, who is skyrocketing, and he is all over the place in the first round. And he's a guy that they are looking at. But if the Celtics have a guy that they worked out, there really hasn't been too many guys that they've worked out more recently. Do they jump up and use that 28 and 32 to kind of actually make a play for somebody that's going to fill in the role that they want? We've talked about Nick Clifford. We talked about Danny Wolf. I mean, I'm talking about Cedric Coward. He is everywhere. But there is a couple of those guys that if you really think that this is the guy to come in and fill in, like, does Brad actually make the move to move up instead of finally not moving back?
So I think that's kind of a double-edged question for me because personally, I think that if there's a guy that he really likes, because we've seen it with Sharman, we've seen it with Jordan Walsh, he will make that move, right? I know for Jordan Walsh, they had him at 25 on their big board, right? And they drafted him in the second round, I believe, pick 38, and that's the whole reason why they were trading back is just because they knew other teams weren't going to take him. With Baylor Shireman, I think when they got to pick 30, they were willing to trade back, but since Shireman was available, they stuck and picked that pick because Shireman was a guy that they wanted. So I think when you kind of compare that, looking at guys like Anik Clifford or maybe even a Cedric Coward or a Danny Wolf who can go a little bit earlier, or even a guy that I'll mention in a little bit in Thomas Sorber, who I think might go a little bit earlier as well. I think if you're the Boston Celtics and you feel confident that guy can make an immediate impact right away, you have to package that 28 and 32. If you feel confident in that guy being able to do that, you make that move. But I think the caveat is, and the other question is with this team being in the second apron and having all these things, wouldn't you rather have 28 and 32 to get at least two solid guys? Because it's not like this second round pick is pick 55. It's pick 32. It's very high. It's someone that's going to be maybe even should have been a day one target, but fell down to the boards because there was just so much up there, or maybe too many trades were going on and his position of need was just not really available by the teams trading up. And I think that's where, if you're the Boston Celtics, you have to really ask yourself that question, because you could get two contributor rookies at that value spot there to really make a significant impact when you need it. And maybe even, once again, compete against those guys like Baylor Sharman, JD Davis, and Jordan Walsh to really kind of push those limits to these guys to reach their best potential, even to really see what this best version of this team could truly be. And I think at the trade deadline as well, we're really going to see how that is impacted on the Celtics, because I think a lot of these guys, similar to the title year that they went for when they had guys like Delano Banton and Lamar Stevens, sorry I blanked on his name, but guys that didn't really fit the mold anymore and they moved him for other pieces that can kind of help out later down the line. I think that's something we could see with some of these young players if they don't really blossom with the Celtics team this year.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that if they really do like somebody, I think that they should definitely look to trade up, because there's some solid options. But I do like that too, kind of just staying, because one, I love watching the Celtics make picks, so that's just me being selfish. But I think that this year is like the perfect opportunity to kind of actually plug in some of these guys and actually see them play in action early in the season and see what you got already. Because obviously the small forward, power forward position is pretty much wide open right now with Tatum being half the season being missed. I mean, let's kind of keep it at that. I'm not going to give the whole season. And then just the center position as well. I think that that's a question with Neemias Queta. How is he going to grow? Luke Cornett, hopefully he signs back. I mean, Al Horford said he's going to come back and play. So, I mean, that's also in question. But if you have him in the lineup, you kind of have someone to kind of learn from Al Horford, which is also great. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and you could think about it so many ways positively. And I mean, you can convince me any possible way, honestly.
No, that's where I am kind of with this team too. I think kind of both ways I wouldn't be upset with this Celtics team. I think I would value it a lot as well. And I have a good comment for you, Patrick, here from NJ. He's saying, when are you going to sign for the Bruins? They need an enforcer on defense, Patrick. When are you signing up for the Bruins?
Hey, I got the height. I don't know about the strength. I don't know how to stop on ice skates, but if you got a guy who could help, I got you. I mean, put me on a vet min. I'll be set for life.
All right. We might need you for next year after that little bit of a disastrous tank this season. And with the Islanders from Long Island bringing home the #1 overall pick, they're going to be getting someone good, unlike the Bruins. So maybe we do need you on the ice over there, Patrick. We'll have to get you on that dual contract with Digest Media.
I'll give some hits. I'll give you some energy. Maybe I'll get in a fight or something. You know?
I mean, I'll cheer for that. I'll be banging on the glass. I better get tickets.
Put me in for a minute. That's all you need. I'll kind of bring some energy, and I'll be the energy guy. That's fine with me.
All right, I'm down for that. Let's rock with that. I mean, talking about some more draft guys as well, Patrick. I know I want to mention two more guys, one for you and one for me, and kind of rip off the Band-Aid. I already mentioned him earlier. You already mentioned your guy earlier, but. Yep. My guy that I think the Celtics should really keep an eye on for this draft is Thomas Sorber out of Georgetown. And once again, another Big East guy, someone that we have paid attention to, but a freshman. This is the one difference compared to those guys like Kalkbrenner, Danny Wolf, and Maxime Renaud. He is younger than those guys. But I do think a guy in Sorber has that offensive potential, and at 7 foot can be that low post scorer that the Celtics need offensively to really help develop. And he did have that foot injury, which it is a little bit questionable. That's why I think he's a little fluctuating on these draft boards, but I think he can make a significant impact, and I think he has the potential to go even in the lottery with how great he could actually be on some of these teams. So in my opinion, if he's there at the Celtics pick, or the Celtics see them slipping to 20 like we were talking about earlier, 22, that's a type of player I would kind of trade up to go and get. But when talking about your guy, Patrick, I know you mentioned you're interested in this player, and shout out to Jack Simone from How About Them Celtics. He tweeted out that Hoops Hype had mentioned that the Celtics had interviewed some guys or worked out some guys, and this guy was on that list. So he's been fluctuating. Why don't you let the fans know a little bit about him before we turn our way to some trade talks?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I have been looking at that website for weeks
Mm-hmm.
to see who is working out with the Celtics, and it hasn't updated in weeks. So, worked out anybody, or it's bugged. But, kids, Cedric Coward, I'm going to drop a video right after the live, guys, about Cedric Coward. I'll give you a little bit more information on him, but he is a stud. I think that a good comparison for him is Jalen Williams, because his height, his wingspan, the weight, and his rise in the draft is the exact same as Jalen Williams. He's a great shooter. He could play defense fairly well. I think that there's a couple times where he'll kind of overcommit on defense, kind of just run past the defender, but he saves it with his wingspan. He's standing at 6'6" with a 7'2.5" wingspan. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. He's got some good athleticism. His jump shot is so smooth, probably one of the smoothest I've seen in the draft since Jordan Hawkins, who has one of the smoothest jump shots too. I mean, you guys will love this guy. I mean, he's been all over the place. I've seen him getting mocked even in the top 10, being the 10th pick, and I've seen him all the way down at the end of the first round. And when I'm talking about someone to trade up for, this is one of the guys that I'm talking about, because he's even getting comparisons to a small Kawhi Leonard. And I can totally see it. He's got the great, just drive. He came from a Division III school, played Washington. I think it was Eastern Washington first, and the coach loved him, brought him onto the team. Then he was going to Washington State, and he was committed to Duke. But instead, they said, you should definitely stay in the draft because you are going to be a first-round pick. And just there's so many things I could talk about this guy, and he's so impressive. You guys got to watch the film on him, and you're going to love him. And if the Celtics get him right in their hands, I mean, there's no way they say no, especially because they worked him out.
Yeah, this is someone that I've seen kind of fluctuating on the mock drafts. No really kind of certain stance on him, and I'm going to have to do my research from your video that you drop later tonight on him, because I want to figure out really where he can really fall in and what his true archetype could be for this Boston Celtics team, how he can fit in, and what he can really display. Because like him, like Sorber, these are the potential guys that the Celtics could trade up to go and get, and I think that's another big question or question mark surrounding the Boston Celtics and their offseason plans as well. And before we turn away from the draft, Patrick, I do want to answer my boy Eamon's question. Shout out to Eamon Castles for being here in the stream. He did ask if we looked into Stanford's Maxime Reynaud at all, and I don't know if he was in here earlier. We definitely did talk about that a little bit earlier, Eamon. We definitely do like his offensive skill set, and I think he could be a nice, compared him to a little bit of a Kristaps Porziņģis-esque type build or big for the Boston Celtics here. I don't know if he'll be there at the pick, but we definitely will have a draft video coming out on Maxime Reynaud in the future, and I know that one of my subscribers, Rob Version, shout out to him, he wants a John I. Broome deep dive as well. So we're definitely going to go into him as well. So guys, if you have any other players you guys want us to do a deep dive in, or anyone else you want to see us talk about looking ahead of the draft, let us know down below in the comment section on those videos or on this stream, and Patrick and I will make sure we get ahead of that.
Hey, I mean, I did say before the stream, I do want to talk about some Kobe Bryant too. I don't know if anyone about Kobe Bryant, one of the best college three-point shooters probably of all time. He's in that top list, man.
Yep.
And the Celtics get a guy like him if Sam Hauser's out the door. I mean, talk about a fill-in guy. I mean, he has an absolute strap. I think he shot 50% at Dayton before he came to Kentucky. I mean, this guy is one of the best shooters I've seen.
Yeah, he, as someone who is a Kentucky fan, I watched him a lot, and I can second with Patrick that he would be an absolute, I don't want to say this, but I am, a lethal shooter for the Boston Celtics if he came off that bench and would fit in 100% into that Mazzulla ball offense. So that's another player definitely to keep an eye on as well, coming through with Patrick, and may even be that's someone that they can get at pick 32 as well if he does fall into the second day, or potentially something like that. So definitely to keep an eye on. But Patrick, we're going to talk a little bit about some trade stuff before we sign off. I know some fans definitely saw Sam Hauser in the thumbnail. They want to get some updates, so we're going to dive into that. If you guys missed it today, we had a video drop talking about this more in detail, so definitely go back to that. But Michael A. Scotto from Hoops Hype, the website that posts all these draft workouts that Patrick studies every single day, let us know that the Celtics have some trade discussions and are looking around already. And there are some names that have been dropping, and in the video, he talked about some specifics. He said, Derrick White, Ben Garnett on the trade market, not leaving. Good. Nothing on Jaylen Brown, which means he's not available. Jrue Holiday has interest from the Clippers and the Mavs, which we've reported on this channel before, and that's something that's not new. Kristaps Porziņģis, viewed as the top trade target for the Boston Celtics, out there on the market, looking like the one player that they're going to try to get off of with that $30 million contract because it is an expiring deal. And then lastly, talked about the main man that we have in the thumbnail, Sam Hauser, as teams expect his contract kicking in next season at 4 years, $45 million from the extension he got last offseason, to be a very easily tradable contract for the Celtics, with a plethora of teams having the salary cap to just even absorb that contract without just sending the Celtics any salary back and just sending them some draft picks. So Patrick, when you hear that, when you hear the kind of news talking about some of these players, and you can really just pick a player if you really want to, what's your main really thoughts on some of these trade discussions?
Yeah, I think they're pretty obvious. To be honest with you, every single name is definitely an obvious name that I've seen. I mean, Kristaps and Jrue have just been the highlight of everything. Especially, I call it the highlight because the Derrick White and Jaylen Brown ones are just, I'm just blocking them out.
Yes.
I want to hear them.
Yes.
But when it comes to the guys that I actually do see getting traded, I think Sam Hauser's kind of under the radar a little bit. We talked about this. Obviously, he's a guy that you want to keep, but I mean, you kind of elevate Baylor Shireman a little bit more, cheaper contract. I think a lot of teams have interest in him because of how good of a shooter Sam Hauser is, especially this year. Shot the ball fantastic. And I think that if you look at, a high-tier team, maybe the Celtics don't really want to trade him to a championship contender, but that's the type of guy that they're looking for. We saw the Cavs with Max Strus, Sam Merrill. They had all these shooters coming off the bench and kind of creating like this heavy punch offense on the three-point line. I think that he definitely creates a big trade market, and they could kind of get a little bit more than you think with Sam Hauser.
Yeah, I think you kind of illustrated it perfectly. Not only does he have like a tradable contract for the Boston Celtics as well, but he provides a lot of roles for this opposing teams that are looking to get him. He can shoot the ball really well. Shot 42%, I believe, on his career from three-point range. Absolutely insane. But not to mention just that, Sam Hauser could play some solid defense at the perimeter, play some solid defense at the rim as well, and I think is one of the better, if not top of the best catch-and-shoot players in the NBA. And fitting in that Joe Mazzulla offense with the three ball being such an instrumental part of the game, I think a lot of teams are going to value their interest in him. Specifically, I think two teams that kind of intrigue my eye. One of them that the Celtics played in the playoffs is the Orlando Magic. We all know that they lacked that shooting specifically and desperately in that series. Sam Hauser, I think, could really fit in well with them. And then another team that was also in the playoffs, didn't run into the Celtics, but lost to the team that also the Celtics lost to. It is the Detroit Pistons. I think they could value the shooting of Sam Hauser, fitting him in at that wing position, and also with them having free agents in Tip Hardaway and Malik Beasley. This could be an easy way for them with a team that has salary cap to absorb a contract in already, and then also be able to still add some shooters or other depth pieces in free agency as well.
Oh, I don't even want to think about him being on those two teams. I really don't. I mean, maybe even a team like Portland kind of put a
yes.
Sharp. I could definitely see that too. I mean, Portland clearly likes to trade with everybody. They don't care. They'll take in all these contracts and do whatever the hell they want. So I could definitely see that happening too. But I mean, that would be scary if the Orlando Magic got Sam Hauser. Even the Pistons too. But I mean, Malik Beasley hit the second most threes this year. We saw what he did. I mean, over 300 threes. I think he was like 317 on a great clip. Second in sixth man of the year. You could see that again, probably with Sam Hauser if he went to the Detroit Pistons. I mean, he maybe start, but I don't know what's going on over there generally. But I mean, again, I think a lot of teams are going to be looking for these guys that could just absolutely shoot the crap out of the ball. But one thing about Sam Hauser that I talked about a lot this year was how he actually would take some backdoor cuts and some two-pointers for once, because he's constantly being a three-point shooter, and the defender knows that. He's going to step up on Sam Hauser, kind of keep him out of the play, but sometimes they'll overplay him, and he's actually seeing the backdoor cut, and he's learning that way to kind of get in the paint and open up the offense. I think he's grown a lot that way, and I think a lot of teams are going to see that too. So I think that's why his value is going to be pretty high. I think he's going to get some good value, and I don't know if you see this down here. Do we think that KP can maybe take a little bit of a pay cut alongside Luke? I could kind of touch on that real quick if you want. I mean, we know how much KP loves Boston. I think that we'd love to think that he would take a pay cut, but do we realistically think that he would actually take a pay cut? Probably not. I mean, unless he knows about the whole injury thing and the illness thing that he had going on, maybe he would have some type of way feeling or the way that he would go out as a Boston Celtic. That would be my only take. But I think Luke Cornett would probably be a guy who could take a little bit of a cut. I think he deserves just a little bit more. But, I mean, I don't know how much of a cut either of them will actually take.
Yeah. Well, with Porzingis, the only difficulty is he's still under contract for 1 year. So for the Boston Celtics, right, when you look at that, if they're going to extend him, they can extend him on a cheaper contract if they cannot get off his contract, or, maybe it's not the right value. And that's something we could see. And one thing to keep in mind with the Celtics too, and I found this out, they don't have to get below the second apron until the end of the season, right? So like, they can be in the second apron at the start if they can't generate a trade for Porzingis, maybe even extend Porzingis, right? But if it's not working, or if Porzingis really plays up to his value, you could see Porzingis get moved at the deadline if the Celtics, are at a weird circumstance or feel that they need to, this is the best value that they can get for Porzingis, we need to move off him. So I think that's a big question as well. Talking about Luke, I think he would be the one that could take a pay cut. And once again, I want to see Luke Cornett here. I think he will be back in Boston. But also, part of me says that he's well-deserved and outplayed his contracts in Boston. He's notoriously known for joking about how he needs to pay his mortgage. That's why he wants to win the in-season tournament. So I think it's well-deserving for a guy like Luke Cornett, who's played up to this value in the playoffs, to, if he's offered that $8 to $10 million contract, something he wasn't offered last offseason, to realistically take it if it's not from the Celtics team, and I would not fault him. I know ordinary guys also asking about Aldama and Collins. The only problem about Aldama, he's a free agent, and I know from the Memphis Grizzlies side of things that they feel that they're not going to be able to bring back Aldama because he's going to request a big payday. So that's a serious question revolving around the Celtics. Don't really have the money to do it. And then Collins, he's on a team option. So the Celtics, the only way that they're able to nab John Collins is via a trade, which would be either a Jrue Holiday trade, which I don't see him going to Utah, so it would be a 3-team deal. Or I could see, obviously, the Porzingis for John Collins swap, which we did talk about in a previous podcast or a live stream. But ultimately, I feel like for the Boston Celtics, those guys are a little bit far-fetched out there. I don't know about you, but...
Yeah, I mean, Aldama doesn't really do it for me, to be honest. I think he fits. He's kind of like a team system type of guy. I don't know how he'd fit so well with the Celtics. I mean, I do like John Collins. I mean, he was a borderline 40-90. I know he was in the season at a point, and it was a decent amount of time. But I think as Collins has like a lob threat, but he would be definitely playing the 4 consistently. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of better options that I do like for the Boston Celtics than these two options. Talked about Daniel Gafford, I feel like a million times. So he'd be one of the guys that I would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that I really like, and I know you mentioned Robert Williams earlier. I saw some people talking about him in the chat as well. I know the Celtics fans would love to see a reunion with him. I know probably you as well, including myself. But my question kind of going into this is, could you see potentially the Celtics maybe offloading some guys like Jrue or Kristaps Porziņģis and maybe really reinvesting in some of these guys that they did trade away on Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, to bring them back on, a either team-friendly contract, or because they are on expiring deals now at this point, both of them going into next season on their 1-year deal, and then maybe negotiating a team-friendly deal in the future to maybe patch those issues? Or do you maybe think if by doing that it ultimately causes them to have to eventually trade them again to get those other stars or something like that? That's where I kind of am at crossroads.
Do I tell you what my heart says or what I think is
My heart says that I want it too. My heart says I want it too.
I would love that. But I mean, I think sometimes it's a little too good to be true.
Yep.
We don't really see a lot of guys kind of come back like that and produce as good as we want them to. I think the only time that we see someone come back is Daniel Dice for the 50th time and get traded again. But other than that, I mean, I would love it. I just don't realistically see that happening. It feels like they kind of just, they were on that street, they left it, and they never have a plan to go back down it. Maybe Marcus Smart comes back at the end of his career. I think that Robert Williams could make some sense, but with the roster that they have right now, I don't really know how he fits, to be honest.
Yeah, that's my kind of thinking too. Like, maybe if you move a guy in Jrue and you feel that Pritchard rose to the occasion, you can put Marcus Smart back there. But once again, then it's just asking yourself the same question, like, why did you trade Jrue for this. You know what I mean? Like it's just a little bit of a little bit of an acre. Maybe Marcus Smart doesn't even want to revisit that type of situation again or be put into that type of stuff. But like you said, I think Smart at some point at the end of his career could definitely find himself in Boston. Robert Williams, I think, makes a little bit more of a fit now, but is definitely a little bit of more of a questionable fit for the Celtics just because of his availability, and with the issues in the front court, having someone like that being added is a little bit more questionable. But I think the Celtics definitely have some keen eyes out on the trade market. We know that we have seen Jrue Holiday, like I mentioned, linked to the Mavs, linked to the Clippers. I'm sure there'll be more teams coming out. Once the finals do go underway tomorrow, we will obviously see, more news come out with all this type of stuff. Once the finals do end, we get closer to the draft, closer to free agency. So we'll be having more discussions and more breakdowns on that. But Patrick, this was a fantastic stream. We got to break down some great things with the Celtics, talking about the draft. I know that's your really area of expertise. We talked about some trades, kind of going around the salary cap, my area of expertise. So we kind of hit both cylinders today, which I think was a great productive stream as well. I want to say shout out to everyone that was in the stream today. Ordinary Guys, Lloyd, Eamon Castles, John Rainville. We had a Pirate logo. Josh Crampton, my boy. Our boy NJ, who wants you to play for the Bruins. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. And everybody else. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here on this lovely Wednesday. We do go live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time talking about this Boston Celtics team. So if you did enjoy the talking and discussions that Patrick and I have today, make sure to come back next Wednesday. We'll definitely be having some fun, maybe a potential guest as well for next week. So definitely keep your eyes out on that as well. Patrick and I will also have videos going over some draft guys, looking at some trade stuff, and everything else revolving around the Celtics team. So it's not just live streams. This is the central place for Celtics news. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a beat. Patrick and I, we're going to be signing off, saying later to you guys on this Wednesday afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics.